What's next in CNN's federal lawsuit against President Trump and several of his top aides? Correspondent Jim Acosta has his press pass back, but the fight may not be over yet. As you know, the lawsuit was filed on Tuesday, alleging that his suspension of his White House press access violated the First Amendment and the Fifth Amendment right to due process. On Wednesday, Judge Timothy J. Kelly questioned both sides. And on Friday, he ruled in CNN's favor on Fifth Amendment grounds, forcing the White House to return Acosta's pass. Here's what CNN and Acosta said in response. Quote, "We are gratified with the result and we look forward to a full resolution in the coming days. Our sincere thanks to all who have supported not just CNN, but a free, strong, and independent American press." Indeed, dozens of major news outlets, virtually all of the nation's biggest newsrooms, are standing by CNN in this case. So are advocacy groups that represent thousands of newspapers and tens of thousands of journalists. But, yes, there's a but. At the moment, this victory is still temporary. The judge's ruling was narrow. He did not address the First Amendment issues, and the temporary restraining order is only in effect for 12 more days. So the lawyers will be back in court this week for more. I spoke with Ted Boutros, who's the lawyer who argued for CNN in court, and he told me what's going to happen in the next few days. Take me into Friday morning. You were in the courthouse to hear Judge Kelly's ruling. What was it like inside the courtroom?
It was tense because it was the situation where the order would have an immediate effect, and it did. It just made the anticipation and the tension so thick in the room. And
what did you and Acosta say to each other after the ruling came down?
We said, this is important, this is a big victory, because he said, I'm going to just go back to work. And I said, that's what this is all about. And we had a quick hug there in the courtroom, and off he went.
So we're heading into another work week, of course, also the Thanksgiving holiday. This temporary restraining order is, of course, temporary. So what are the next steps? What's going to happen next?
Next steps are Monday, we will be submitting a proposed scheduling order for the court to go to the next phase, the preliminary injunction phase. The temporary restraining order only lasts for 14 days. So unless we come to some agreement or we agree to extend that, we go back into court and argue for a preliminary injunction, which can be indefinite, much longer. And so we're going to do some scheduling issues. And then in the meantime, we're going to, Mr. Acosta is going to just keep doing his job.
Do you have any sense of whether the White House will try to settle with you out of court?
This is an unpredictable White House, as you know, but they did make statements. The president made a statement, and Sarah Sanders in her initial statement right after the ruling about developing rules and standards going forward. We encourage that strongly. That's one of our arguments, that the decorum and those issues are important, but you can't have after the fact punitive actions taken. There need to be advanced rules to guide everyone. So we encourage that, and that might be a path towards everybody just agreeing and going forward. So CNN and Mr. Acosta didn't want to have to bring a lawsuit. We wanted to work this out and say, let's go forward in a way that is productive, but they forced our hand. They wouldn't respond. That's why we had to file the lawsuit. So we all encourage coming up with a resolution, and let's just move on. The president can make news, and CNN and Jim Acosta can cover it. I think it'll all work out, and maybe everyone can move forward with aggressive news coverage and a lot of press conferences. That would be good.
It would be good. But the idea of rules and regulations, the president saying we're going to write rules for the White House, could that actually be a setback for the press corps if the White House tries to enforce all sorts of new guidelines for how reporters are allowed to behave?
That's always an issue when you think about it, but I think the rules need to be pretty basic so that you know at least the fundamentals, though you can't arbitrarily in retrospect get thrown out for trying to ask a follow-up question, that sort of rule. And it has to be something that the White House Correspondents Association, the White House agreed to, just kind of general rules of the road. So no, we don't want some sort of First Amendment code. And again, I said this in the hearing and I'll repeat it, President Trump when he says people are being rude and disrespectful, he sets that tone. And I'm not being critical of him. So we can't have it that it's just the White House after the fact deciding who they like and who they don't like. The D.C. Circuit case we relied on says that there has to be a compelling reason, compelling, the highest level of scrutiny under the Constitution before you strip someone of their liberty interest or property interest in having a White House press credential.
So bottom line, this is something that's going to continue to be argued about for months to come, even years, you think? Or is this something that may resolve itself relatively quickly?
It's hard to say. I can say this. We want to just simply move forward and let CNN and Jim Acosta gather news and report it. The law in this circuit is very clear in terms of how these things should proceed and what the White House can and can't do. And at this point, I think we're ready to litigate as long as we have to protect these First Amendment rights, to ask the court to declare rules of the road going forward. But there's always, you look for a resolution that makes the most sense so everyone can get out of court and get back to their work, and that goes for the White House and for the journalists. So we're open to anything. We're just glad that we got this temporary order, and we're ready for anything else that comes down the pike.
In this case, though, as you were saying, the system worked. Checks and balances worked. Given the last 2 years of concern about stress on our institutions, Trump's attacks on the press and the courts. In this case, the press and the courts succeeded.
It made me feel really good as a lawyer and as a citizen to see the system work this way so quickly, restore, right the ship here in a way that protects the First Amendment and the American people's ability to get information about their government. So it was a very good day for our Constitution as a general matter, and for my clients in particular. So very gratified to see that happen.
Now, Carl Bernstein is back here with me. Carl, the president says he just wants decorum at the White House. I guess he means like this.
I know you're not thinking. You never do. You are a rude, terrible person.
Talk about somebody that's a loser. She doesn't know what the hell she's doing.
Excuse me. Don't do that.
You ask a lot of stupid questions.
Maybe not like that, but do you think the White House will follow up with these rules?
Two things. First of all, you are watching the rageaholic president at a point of his greatest rage and who it's at. And his greatest rage is at the press. Why? Because we have reported in such a way that despite everything he's done and said, the country at large has a body of fact to judge him and to judge his presidency, and he has been unable to manipulate the press as he has throughout his adult life in New York with the tabloids, which are the key to his persona and his success to begin with, his manipulation of the press. He hasn't been able to do it, and so he's even more raging there. And whose decorum are we really talking about here? The decorum of the presidency has been undermined and defiled by this president of the United States through the kind of thing that we just saw there, but also through the lying. We always come back to the lying. That is not decorous, to go back to the term decorum. A president of the United States who makes untruth the fundament of his way of doing business, both with the press and the people of the country, that is not decorum. And yes, he is going to try and save face here through some rules, and he has every right. The President of the United States and the White House has the right to promulgate a set of rules, if fairly applied across the board, that responds and regards the First Amendment and all that it entails with respect. They get to make the rules, and at the same time they have to be fair, equitable, and hopefully it will be done in consultation with the press. This lawsuit, which was a really good, smart lawsuit, gives everybody an opportunity here, we'll see if the White House takes it, to move on in a dignified, decorous way. Let's see and hope that it happens.
Yeah, we will see. Carl, thanks for being here.
Good to be with you.
Great to see you.